Over the centuries, the world has played witness to many crimes against humanity. Unfortunately, attempts at genocide are far too frequent. Allied with these events, we often see people and/or nations stunned into silence, helpless to do anything, or simply standing by hoping that it will all just go away. Sometimes the heroes of our world do speak up against such atrocities, but this is not the usual experience. In many instances, these atrocities are left unchecked and are allowed to continue unabated. And what is the consequence? On the one hand, we become moral bystanders to these atrocities, or worse, we become complicit or accomplices to the conduct of these atrocities. But on the other hand, we run the risk of becoming victims ourselves. I'm reminded of the famous statement attributed to Pastor Martin Niemöller about the inactivity of German intellectuals following the Nazi rise to power and the purging of their chosen targets, group after group. First, they came for the communists, and I didn't speak out because I was not a communist. Then they came for the trade unionists, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a trade unionist. Then they came for the Jews, and I didn't speak out because I wasn't a Jew. And then they came for me, and there was no one left to speak out for me. So tonight we welcome Dr. Stephen Smith, whose work epitomizes the message in this statement, being the need to speak up. In last week's edition of the Australian Jewish News, Dr. Smith stated that the Holocaust comes with many implications. One of them is surely that one should never be a bystander to the wasting of human life. Another has to be that every life has equal value. Another, that those who saved Jews have the highest honor because they risked their own lives to save the lives of others. In acting on this philosophy, Dr. Smith founded the United Kingdom Holocaust Centre in Nottinghamshire, England, and co-founded the Aegis Trust for the Prevention of Crimes Against Humanity and Genocide. He was also the inaugural chairman of the Holocaust Memorial Day Trust, which runs the National Holocaust Memorial Day in the United Kingdom. Dr. Smith is involved in projects around the world. He was the project director responsible for the creation of the Kigali Memorial Centre in Rwanda and provided consultation for the Cape Town Holocaust Centre, where he still serves as a trustee. Dr. Smith is a theologian by training with a particular interest in the impact of the Holocaust on religious and philosophical thought and practice. He wrote his dissertation on the trajectory of memory, explaining how Holocaust survivor narrative, and in particular visual history, has developed over time and shapes the way in which the implications of the Holocaust are understood. Dr. Smith is an international speaker, lecturing widely on issues relating to the history and collective response to the Holocaust, genocide, and crimes against humanity. In recognition of his work, Dr. Smith has become a member of the Order of the British Empire and received the Interfaith Gold Medallion, the Andrew Cross Award for Religious Broadcasting, and an honorary doctorate of law from Leicester University. Dr. Smith is committed to making the testimony of survivors of the Holocaust and of other crimes against humanity a compelling voice for education and action. His leadership at the USC Shoah Foundation Institute will focus on finding strategies to optimize the effectiveness of the testimonies for education, research, and advocacy purposes. Tonight, we are honored to have Dr. Smith with us as the ADC Gandel Orator for 2011. Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Dr. Stephen Smith.
And there was no one left to speak for me. If I have no name, who am I? If I have no face, who am I? I have no past, no present, no future. Can I claim to have ever existed? If I have no voice, no words, no memories to pass on, no story to tell you about who I am and where I came from. If instead of my portrait there's a blank canvas, instead of my voice there is simply silence, What can you possibly say about me? I am nothing. I am silenced. Wieleń is a very small town in Poland. Remember the day that we arrived there in the minibus, Pinchas, Guta, his wife, his children and I. We clambered out of the minibus in search of the farm where his grandfather, a sort of Tevye type figure who sat on the cart with his woolen tzitzis hanging out of the back of his over the back of the cart as he went through the mud, the geese scattering around him. But this was not Fiddler on the Roof. This was real people with real lives. The Zilbersteins were Gera Chassids. Unusual, really, that they lived on a farm and reared geese and exported eggs, millions of eggs. They weren't small-time farmers at all. We looked for the farm, but the farm was nowhere to be seen. And so we went to the town hall in search of names, and we went through the archive, but there were no names to be seen, and so we went to the cemetery, and there was no cemetery. Just a sign that said, this was the place of the Jewish cemetery of Wieleń. Was. Even the cemetery is now in the past tense. We stood there and Pinchas recited Kaddish for the missing Jews of Wieleń, for his missing grandparents and their community, and all the missing gravestones that had long since gone. And we stood in the silence within the silence, within the void that had been created. The next day we were in Łódź, Lodge. We went to Lodge because we knew that the apartment was there. The apartment where all his memories were gathered up. The place to where his grandmother sent the goose fat so that his mother could use it in the cooking for Pesach. The apartment where he crawled around the floor as his father read the Gemara in the morning, smoking his cigar, Pinchas playing with the Havana box, where he learnt his Aleph Bet on his father's knee in the half-light of the morning. The apartment where people came and went like a train station, and he knew that when we went back there, finally, he could lay the ghosts to rest because it would all be there again. And so we went down Ulica Zachodnia, looking for number 54. So we counted down 98, 92, 82, 76, 72, 66, getting closer now, 56, 52. And he stood there and looked left and right between 56 and 52, and all there was a parking lot. And so he asked the neighbours, where is 54? Oh, it came down long ago. It was dangerous. And he stood there in the empty space that had been his life, that for 60 years he would dream he would return to and find himself again. And he stood in the silence, within the void that had become his life. Zbyletowska Góra is a small village.